everyone is equal. There is no hierarchy. This imaginary hierarchy of business or of a restaurant or that I am your executive chef, it's made up. With all the respect in the world, of course, it's made up. It's something that we decided arbitrarily, right? You are a person and I'm a person. And at the end of the day, yes, we signed a contract where I'm paying you money for a job that you're going to do, but that's an exchange. You're not indebted to me because I gave you money. You're exchanging it with work. So first of all, I think recognizing that and realizing that after everything, you take away the business, take away, you are my equal, and on the streets we're equals, and in here we're equals, they are going to recognize that you had a certain amount of pressure on you because you have to be that business, and they're going to want you to succeed because they see that you're respecting them as an asset, as a part of the team, not as someone that worked for you.
Welcome to the Restaurant Leaders Unplugged podcast, where real talks with restaurant leaders take center stage. Discover the challenges and victories that define success in the culinary world. Dive into essential strategies from marketing to operations and gain insights that will transform your approach to your restaurant business. Don't just keep up, lead the way. Join me, your host, Sebastian Stahl, on this journey to excellence.
Welcome to the Restaurant Leaders Unplugged podcast. This is Sebastian Stahl speaking here. Today we have an awesome guest. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, my friend. So, Brian, let's get started with how you got started in this beautiful and crazy journey of restaurants. Can you share a little bit of your background story?
Yeah, of course. A little bit by chance, but everything's a little bit by chance, right? So cooking's always been in the family. My grandfather was a chef in Argentina, and I opened a little playtime here. And it was always around the family, but never something I took very seriously. I was actually more music oriented when I was younger. So I went to NYU, and I remember I stopped doing music and I started studying philosophy, which really has no career. You're either writing a book or teaching a class, things like I did not want.
Yep.
I remember my senior year just really not knowing what was going to happen. And I had a friend who was an architect major, and he also did not want to do it. And he just stopped school and said, I'm going to go work in some kitchen. I don't remember exactly what it was, somewhere new. And when he told me that, I just thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever heard. I don't know why. It just seems like such a cool idea to go work in a kitchen. I did like cooking, but never seriously like that. And I had a friend then at the time whose uncle was the executive chef at Lord Fish Fart, Josh Capon. So I figured I'll shoot him an email, see what information I can get. I was thinking, what culinary school? I didn't know. I just wanted some guidance. So I shot him an email. I said, can I come down and sit and talk to you for a few minutes? He said, yeah, of course. He sat down with me and he said, do not go to culinary school. You already did college. You're going to throw money away. He said, everyone, or, Top Chef was getting big. He said, everyone's glorifying the industry. And let me tell you, it is nothing to glorify, right? You could love it, but 90% of people will absolutely hate it. And he told me, I got some guy, same thing, came in and said, I want to be a chef. Within 30 days, the guy said, I'm never doing this again. Mm-hmm. He said, so this is what I suggest. Go find a restaurant that you like, work there for free for a month. See if you like it. And I said, oh, let me work here for free. And he said, oh, you want to do it here? And I said, I would love to do it here. Take me on for free. And he said, okay. And I ended up within 1 week just being so obsessed with the kitchen. So I worked there for the next year for free. I did not want to leave. So my entire senior year after class, I would just go straight there. I would work at night the entire time. And I was just so obsessed with it. I couldn't wait to get back in. And I ended up leaving just because New York was just too expensive at that time. So he had offered me a line cook job, but to have to trek over from Queens or Bronx, deep Bronx, to, an hour a day, an hour back every day to get the job. I said, look, I'd love to stay, but I got to go. I got to go back to Miami. I will work a quality of life there. And that's how it started. And I got quickly connected here in Miami with Wish Cafe, with, another member.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's how I really started.
That's fantastic, man. So tell me a little bit about, after that initial start, what happened after that and how did you get into restaurant ownership? When did you decide okay, man, this is cool, like working for these restaurants, I want to do my own thing?
Okay. So at first I realized that I was backed up, right? I was already 22, almost 23, and I wasted a lot of time. And in this industry, you got to start strong. So I got, again, really hyper-focused on asking a ton of questions. So I started really asking why to absolutely everything. Why we're doing this? Why is this? And I would really spend as much time as I could trying to understand it. And that got me to go up the ladder fairly quickly. So they made me the chef de cuisine there within 2.5 years, 3 years. And I had just those 3.5 years of experience. Then right after I got sent over, the restaurant closed, but I got sent over to be the executive steward at Sushi Samba. And again, questions. They made me the executive chef 6 months after there, and I was doing both restaurants. So I realized that while this industry is challenging, if you take the necessary steps and you ask the right things and you really hyper focus on making it happen, you can get there quickly, right? So after 3 years of Sushi Samba, I got incredibly motivated to just do something by myself. It had been a lot of work there. I realized that in that big company, there was only so high I could get to. They had a corporate chef, great place to work for, but it's just, I needed to start having my own thing. I was just feeling it. I was already 28, 27 or 28 around that time. So I said, I'm going to leave. I'm going, respectfully, we had a great party and wasn't on bad terms. And I'm going to figure this out, whatever that means. I just knew that I had to figure out a new stuff. So I left. And I took about a month off just to kind of clear my mind. And at that time, I was talking to my father. And he was like, what are you going to do? And I was, I don't know. I may go work for someone. I'd love to open up my own restaurant. I don't know what the necessary steps are. Like capital, of course, you need a ton of money. And he said, why don't we do this together? And I said, really? You'd be interested? And he said, what do you mean? I would love to, open a business with my son. I'd love to do that. I know nothing about it, but I'd love to take that risk, right?
Wow.
So we started looking, and within, I don't know, maybe a month, we found the space that we were in for Beaker. And it started aligning. And all of a sudden, there's always this checklist of obstacles you have to overcome for these projects to happen. Find the place, find the money, make sure the causes are right, find the GCs, make sure everything's in place. And then every single obstacle just started falling into place. And we said, okay, this is looking like it's becoming more real and more real. And it became real. Along that way, Ben was my best friend, who took a very similar path in his industry as well, but outro world. We were talking, and I'd always wanted to do something with him as well. We had been speaking for a while, and he said, let's do something together. He came on board, and boom, we conceptualized Beaker Gray, and then that was it.
That's very cool, man. So tell me a little bit about, you can share a little bit about the concept itself. Like what was Beaker and Gray inspired, and how did you guys come up with that concept?
So while we took our paths very separately, it was like similar times, but we took it independently of each other. We always had a very similar approach, right? We always wanted to respect the quality of what we do. For us, integrity and quality was beyond important. And across the board, not just on the products, but on the service, on how we treated our staff, on the place, we just wanted to make sure the quality of what we did was where it needed to be. First, we aligned with that mentality. And we said, whatever we do here, it's not going to necessarily be about concept. It's going to be about quality. It's going to be about what corners we don't cut, right? That was the goal. Let's not cut corners. Let's do things the right way. Not overspending, everything cautiously, but the right way within our means. So we really started trying to think of a concept that we could showcase that. And we realized that it wasn't about concepts, and it was just about making something. That's kind of what became Beaker, right? It wasn't Italian, it wasn't Latin American, it wasn't French. It was, what do we want to do here? Let's have fun with this, right? Let's create a product we're going to enjoy, that we want to enjoy, not only making, but also consuming, something that we would want to feel comfortable with. Create an approachable environment where someone can come and really just connect with what we're doing and not feel intimidated by the environment, not feel intimidated by the product, just kind of let loose. We always believed that you can't really enjoy something if you're guarded, right? There's always this sense, right? You go somewhere that's a little too fine dining and they love fine dining. There's this, you have to kind of break a wall when you get there, even within yourself, you may feel observed, you feel like you're doing something wrong. We're all a little insecure in those moments, anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So it was really important for us that we took those walls down for people, but they didn't feel like they couldn't approach us. And that was across the board with the place, with the service, and also with the product. We wanted them to have a really unique and fun experience, but it had to be translated in very approachable ways. Approachability was very for us as well.
Yeah.
And that's it. We said, no rules here. Let's just do whatever we think is going to be fun, good, awesome, and just do it. And if we get tired of it, change it. And that's what it was. It was just us really having fun with our ideas.
Yeah. No, man, listen, man, it really was a great concept. I think everything was executed perfectly. I think it definitely speaks to your personality. I think it definitely vents, man.
Thank you.
So Brian, for restaurateurs or for chefs out there that have been working at a restaurant, they're thinking about starting a business, what were the main differences that you found between working in a business or for somebody else and then going into business for yourself? Can you share some insights on that?
Yeah. Well, two different worlds, right? You definitely have to look at things way more cautious than you would before. Not with fear. I always say fear is never going to get you anywhere, right? Because then you don't make decisions that you should because you're nervous about the outcome. But caution to me is very important. I think that you have to be incredibly thorough with every decision that you make. And not to say that you don't have to be if it's not your place. I think that every position merits that kind of attention and focus. If you're an executive chef, but it's not your place, you still need to treat that role as if it's your own restaurant. I tell all the line cooks that come to Beaker and they would train, well, they used to come to Beaker. I would say you need to treat your station like this is your restaurant. Every decision that you make for this station is your restaurant. You need to own every little bit of it because you're accountable. You're responsible for everything that happens here. Similarly, the restaurant is like your station where you have a ton more things to manage, a lot more checks that you have to pay. There's a lot more risk, of course, a lot more possibilities that things going wrong. But I think that if every decision that you make is intentional and every decision that you make has been thought up and you are not impulsive, you are really understanding the reason that you're making a certain decision, right? Those decisions have to be for a certain outcome.
Yeah.
Then you should be okay. I think that you just can't be fearful of decisions. You just have to trust your process, but make sure that process is a place of responsibility, caution, and none.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And you're always going to mess up. You know what I mean?
It's good. That's how you learn, right? I mean, everyone will say that, but you have to embrace the mess up.
Yeah. Well, Brian, listen, man. I mean, you guys had this restaurant for how many years? 12 years?
10.
Okay, so 10 years. So, Brian, 10 years in this business is extremely tough.
Yeah, we're very proud. Very proud.
So, what do you think are the key elements that made you guys sustainable? And what would you say would make a restaurant sustainable in this market? Meaning not just Miami, but in just the current landscape. Any insights on that?
That's a great question. I think first and foremost, and not that I never thought about this, but the first thing that I think came to mind when you asked that is humility. I think you have to be willing to accept that you don't know what the best thing is. So learn from everyone around you. Don't be arrogant in forcing your own belief systems and your own thoughts into a process. Understand that things change and that you may be doing something wrong. And that if you open yourself to the idea that you are doing something wrong, there's a better way to do it, and that's going to hit you. So be willing to learn from everyone and everything around you. That is crucial to me, right? You are not the owner of the truth, and there may not be a truth. So really just try to absorb whatever you can around you. And that's going to shine a lot of light on what you need to be doing, right? Also, this is something that I think is probably the most important thing, and not just in this industry, but across the board in all industries. We're all humans, right? We're all people. And I think the people that you end up employing that become your company are your product. You can't split what you serve, what you do from the people that serve it. So you have to foster an environment where there is harmony. And if you are treating humans like just employees, there's just no way there's going to be harmony. There's no way that you're going to get them to really want to be on your team, to be on your side and serve the best product that they can. So I've always gone by the philosophy of, if you have a member on your team that is, let's say, not doing what you've asked them to do, right? There's two reasons why. Either A, you haven't explained what they should be doing properly, and that's it. Or they don't really care. In which case, that doesn't make them a bad person. That just makes them not right for this team, right? So there's never a place, there's never a time to mistreat someone, to speak to them in any kind of demeaning way. There is a time to let someone go. But creating that team of people that want to be there, that are going to respect the place and the product and you, is incredibly important. And that always starts, I think, with management. I think it's always a manager's fault for why the employee does the right job. So I think that
Yeah.
mentality is so crucial in any operation for success, because they're going to learn from that. They're going to want to learn from you. They're going to bring in the right thing from there. So those things to me are super.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you mentioned a very important thing here, an aspect of, I think, of leadership, which is really a lot what this podcast is about, talking about humility. I hear it mentioned this attribute or this principle, whatever you want to call it. It's in a lot of conversations that we have when we talk about leadership, right? Because it's like having that student mentality. So besides humility, because we just addressed it, what is your leadership style, Brian? What do you think has helped you be successful in leading a team for 10 years and for Beaker and in general for your projects?
Well, two things. One is the one I just mentioned. I think realizing that everyone is equal. There is no hierarchy. This imaginary hierarchy of business or of a restaurant or that I'm your executive chef, it's made, with all the respect in the world, of course, it's made up. It's something that we decided arbitrarily, right? You are a person and I'm a person. And at the end of the day, yes, we signed a contract where I'm paying you money for a job that you're going to do, but that's an exchange. You're not indebted to me because I gave you money. You're exchanging it with work. If that's not working out, so first of all, I think recognizing that and realizing that after everything, you take away the business, take away, you are my equal, and on the streets we're equals, and in here we're equals, they are going to recognize that you had a certain amount of pressure on you because you have to be that business, and they're going to want you to succeed because they see that you're respecting them, that you're respecting them as an asset, as a part of the team, not as someone that worked for you. So I think that was very, very crucial. And second, I think, and I'm sure you get this all the time, but leading by example to me is absolutely necessary. You need to be there with, you have to be there with them. You can't just delegate every single piece of work. I mean, of course, there are things that you have to delegate because that's the nature of the structure, but you can't just expect more from them than you expect from yourself. And I think making sure that you always expect more from yourself than from them is also going to lead to leadership.
For sure, man. I think any project, or I mean, when you go in as a restaurant owner, leadership is just something that you learn through experience, right? Through going through the motions and messing up, right? But I think what you just said is so key, man. Just having that mentality that there's no hierarchy, like you're there to lead, not to be the boss.
And look, and as a boss, I don't mean to cut you off, as a boss, you're going to make mistakes too, just like they will. It's not about the mistake. It's about where do the mistake come from? If you made a mistake, you're a human being. Everyone makes mistakes. Whether you own the place, whether you work for the place, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, that's completely fine. What's not acceptable is when people share, right? When they know they shouldn't be doing something. And again, to call them acceptable is really by a metric that you develop for your place. You can just say, look, I get that this isn't for you. Let's just go separate ways. But people they make mistakes. All of us make mistakes. You can accept their mistakes. We're going to accept yours because I see it happen all the time. And police say, man, my boss is constantly messing up. Why do I need to pay attention to that? But they're going to embrace and accept your mistakes if you accept theirs. And accept again doesn't mean brush off and not tend to, but not punish them for a mistake. It's a mistake.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I think we share similar mindsets and similar philosophies of how leadership is or should be. And Brian, when it comes to the emotional part, man, because this is something that I think it's crucial when you are in a leadership position, you're going to deal with a lot of issues. You're going to deal with a lot of problems, and then you're going to have to deal with a lot of fears, right? Because you were talking about fear at the beginning. 10 years of experience of running a restaurant, man, I'm sure you've seen everything. You went through the pandemic, you went through ups and downs, you've gone through all of these things that happen. What, if any, like tools or any insights that you can share on how to maintain an emotional balance in the midst of all this stuff that happens in running a business? Because people sometimes say, I want to open a restaurant, I want to get into this business or whatever other business. And man, like, I don't think it's for everybody, honestly, because it requires a certain mindset and a certain acceptance of how things happen and are that not everybody's built for that.
First of all, deep question. One that probably merits its own episode entirely, right? But let me answer this as simply as I can, because it's something that I probably speak to myself about. Fears, not just fears. I mean, all kinds of negative thoughts constantly, because we as humans are ridden by this, right? It is our nature to be inundated in these thoughts, not just fear, jealousy, vanity, laziness,
Mhm.
all those things inundate us. So for me personally, what's helped me really is that I notice that I feel I receive those thoughts exclusively in correlation to my energy levels. So when I'm low energy, when I'm tired, I didn't sleep well, I didn't exercise, I didn't eat well the night before, I wake up and I feel the heaviness of the day almost instantaneously. I don't know if you're a coffee drinker, but for those that are coffee drinkers, that first cup of coffee, all of a sudden you go from grog to, well, I'm in a good mood all of a sudden, right? And that is an example of how high energy can really change the filter through which you see things. So I tell myself, look, everything is what it needs to be. Everything is. And what changes is really the filter through which we look at it. You can see the same thing through one lens, through one filter, or fear is one filter. Laziness is another filter. Man, I don't want to get to this right now. I don't feel like doing it. I'm just going to stay home and not do it. All those things are filtered, right? So how do we control those filters? For me personally, what's always helped me keep the negative filters away, and I always say a state of no filter, a state of neutrality is a perfect one. You'll always see things that this is will be awesome, it's going to work out. That's the no filter. All the filters that we have are the negative ones. I have to maximize my energy. So for me, my primary focus, apart from what I need to accomplish at work, is how to take care of myself. So I need to make sure I'm aligned with what I know works best for me. I'm not saying there's a universal formula that everyone shouldn't eat gluten. None of that. I think everyone has their own formula, but stay aligned with what works for you. Get sleep if you have to. Stay away from things. For me personally, things that drain my energy. For me personally, drinking too much drains my energy. So it may not for others, but I know that with me it does. So I just need to the indicator that say, hey, this is going to make you feel like shit the next day, for sure. When I remember my first sous chef job at Wish, when they had just promoted me to sous chef, I remember going out the night before and I got to work the next day, and my ability to function, my ability to do the job the way I wanted to, and not just physically, but emotionally. Like you said at the beginning of your question, that emotion, how does it affect you? I just felt anxiety because I just felt insecure. I felt like I was being watched. I felt like I wasn't doing the job correctly. I do not want to feel this way. I just don't want to feel this way. And I stopped drinking for a long time after that. And I just realized that correlation of high energy, low energy to how I'm going to perceive my job, it's everything. And I try to apply that to everything in my life. So what ends up happening is when I start to feel those negative emotions, I say, this is a filter right now. So instead of having a conversation with those thoughts, instead of indulging those thoughts, I say, they're going to tell you whatever they want right now because you're low energy. Get through this and see what you need to do today and tomorrow. Bring those energy levels back up, because you're going to see the same situation. There will be no lens, and it can all be awesome.
100%, man. That's a great way of putting it, Brian. I mean, of course, it's all about perception, but the filters I've actually haven't heard. But yeah, man, it is about that, And in this industry, man, which is tough sometimes. I mean, what you're talking about requires a lot of self-awareness as well.
You got to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
You got to say, this is, and I know this is fun, but it takes away my energy. You have to be honest with this.
Yeah. And especially in this industry, man, because it's hard, right? Because long hours, and especially as Noto was like, okay, it's normal to work 12, 16 hours a day or whatever it is. And sometimes it's even revered as like, oh, I worked these many hours in the season or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. It's exactly. So you have to kind of go against what everybody's telling you and say, nah, I got to take care of myself, and that I got to eat right. I got to exercise. I got to have time for all of these things. So then you can really perform at your best level when you have to. Yeah. That's cool, man. So when it comes to leadership, another part that's important are your systems, right? Because you need a team, right? And you can have a great team, but then if you don't have the right systems in place, all hell will break loose at your restaurant operation. Yeah, what are some of the things that you learned over the years, Brian, in terms of systems and anything that you can share with restaurant owners, audience that are listening, that can help them into executing properly? Because I mean, again, you guys run this business for quite a bit of time, and the operation was excellent.
Thank you. I can't try that there is a universal system that will work. Right? Every operation is completely unique. There's definitely a philosophical approach to just systematizing your business. And one is, you got to be meticulous. You can't be lazy. You just can't. You have to be repetitive in the decisions that you make. So if I have to place my orders every day at this time. I can't not do it. I can't allow myself to say, well, I won't do it today. I'll do it. I'll catch up tomorrow. Once you start doing that, then you really start to stray from whatever the system you do create. But if we're going to speak generally, I do think that writing everything down, creating lists for oneself is fundamental to getting things done. I do not lean on my memory. While I think I have a strong memory, I think that if you are saturated with data, you are very easily distracted from what you have to do. And lists to me are absolutely everything. And that goes from if you're a line cook to if you are an accountant to or if you are an executive chef, creating lists for absolutely everything. Lean less on your instincts and more on your lists because they will always remind you of the things that you may forget. So again, that'll translate to everything to what I need to do for the next day, what this person has to do, my prep list, my order guides, everything is listed, everything is written down. And it has to be in a way that is understandable by anyone because the day that I'm sick or I'm not there, if the other person has their people. So again, organization is everything to me. You can't not be organized. Things have to be in its place. You have to translate that to the staff. They have to respect where everything has to be in order. That structure that you cannot break will essentially create an infrastructure that will make your life so much easier and will make the nuances, the things that you have to all of a sudden put out, the fires that you have to put out, so much easier. We will make way less energy in trying to put those fires out or trying to excel because the infrastructure is already there. So at the beginning, just make sure everything is in its place, it's organized, and it walks through absolutely everything over and over and over. But organization and revenue lists are everything.
Yeah. What you were just saying is it's in a nutshell, that's it, man. It's just about getting everything documented and setting all those processes up so that you have something to follow. Then everybody can follow those.
Yeah. Because like you said, because we said earlier, we're humans. So we make mistakes all the time. All of them. And there's no way around that. It doesn't matter how perfect you are. There's no way around that. So you need something to lean. Give yourself the tool.
That's it. That's it, Brian. I know that you've shifted into something a little bit different. Tell us a little bit about your new project with Avenue Gray and what are you doing with that?
Yeah. So Avenue Gray is a consulting company that I launched and it has two outlets, right? First of all, I need to preface this. I love operation. I love being there. I love grinding. And a big part of me misses it. And a big part of me is tempted every single day to open up a restaurant and get it right back into it. I have a wife, I have a 5-year-old daughter. So the switch of schedule has really allowed me to spend a lot more time with them. So that said, I started seeing that the industry got so saturated, like we were speaking about earlier, with new operations. And not every operation is being managed the right way. So this consulting company does two things. So it's the consulting service. So I go into your restaurant or any operation that has a back of house, and I will give you 8 and 4 areas. One is going to be creative. So if you need a new menu, I'll help you come up with more ideas. We'll talk about trends. We'll talk about where you want your menu to go, the direction, and we'll create something together. Or if the other menu just needs some improving, some modernizing, whatever it is, we'll work on it together. That's the creative aspect. There's a training aspect as well that I come in. I deal with your staff, your prep cooks and butchering, your line cooks on grilling, frying, sauteing, your expediters, if they need to understand how to communicate to the kitchen staff, whatever it is, we do a full training as well. I do administrative. So like we were speaking about these lists, I go in, I audit your entire operation and I create those lists for you. I create your checkout lists, your check-in list, your station list, your order guides, your inventory lists, all that stuff. And lastly, there's the costing aspect of everything, the cost efficiency. So I make sure that everything is engineered properly. I make sure that you're getting the right prices. I make sure that you're yielding the product right, that your inventories are being counted properly, your food costs are where they need to be. And I educate whoever is there on the importance of understanding exactly how much it costs. And that is the consulting service. What I think is more unique is the management service. And just like there are a saturation of restaurants right now, because of that, labor has just gotten great. So a lot of these restaurants are not able to afford executive chefs, at least full-time executive chefs. And there is an absolute need for executive chefs. I mean, someone has to be there. But again, you say, okay, so what do I do? I need something, but if I hire that thing, it's going to eat up all my money and then I'm going to close. So what do I do? Right? So I created this managing service where Avenue Gray goes, and it's either myself or someone on my team. And we give you part-time chef service, executive chef service, where one of us will be on site once, twice a week, whatever your operation needs, whatever the contract calls for. And we will be your executive chef for those shifts. And afterward, if you need to email, if you need someone to call for guidance, for questions, where do I get this product from? How can I better price this? Should I be doing this? Should I train this? You have that on call. Well, that essentially it's an ad hoc executive chef, that part-time executive chef who will guide you through that process without you needing to pay the full-time pay. So it works out for people because they get the need covered and they don't have to break their bank account with a full-time executive chef.
That's a great concept, and I think it really is perfect for the current market that we're in.
Yeah. The unique time.
It is. So it's a fractional executive chef service, basically.
Right. It's a fractional executive chef. Exactly.
This is very cool. So now that you're working with other restaurants, Brian, what are some common mistakes that you see that restaurant owners are making, and how can they avoid them?
Really good question. So a lot of times I see the owners won't involve themselves enough in the operation, right? So it's really challenging to expect from an employee to treat the place the same way that an owner would treat it. So there has to be some kind of involvement, right? There has to be some kind of exchange with your staff, some kind of eyes on the field that will let them see what's going on. And with that, though, there has to be some kind of system in place that will give them the tools to see what's going on. I see some operators that are incredibly hands-on, and those are very successful restaurants. There's a deep correlation with hands-on owners that are in the operation versus the ones that say, hey, the business should be running. So I think that hands-on approach, as overwhelming and as tiring as it can be, is imperative. It really is, at least to some extent. And also it makes the staff feel appreciated as well. It makes them feel like someone is involved. That may be the other thing that I see. It's that sense of hierarchy that I think there's this misconception that, let me be specific. I think it's really important to, while we are equals as humans, I do think it's important to keep a very specific distance from your staff. You can do whatever you want. But I think it can be dangerous if you start to socialize too much with your staff. You start to go out and have drinks with them, and and that relationship becomes a little too informal because they may not take your leadership as seriously. And again, I think with the right staff and the right mentality, you can get away with it. But it's a very delicate scenario. One that needs to be respected and inspired. That said, I think that there's been this misconception that we have to lead with a hammer versus with love. And I've noticed that, like we were saying earlier about celebrating or glorifying the wrong things, I think sometimes that sense of, oh, you yelled at that guy, good job, he deserved to be spoken to, he deserved to get reprimanded like that. That glorification of managing your staff, to me, is so dangerous because if you're already a hands-off owner, and you're speaking to yourself like that, you may correct the issue in that moment, but I promise you, the second you turn your back, they will not be caring and do the same exact thing. So you may have had a whole show in front of you and reprimanded that person in front of you, and everyone saw how bad he streamed it, but I promise you, it's not last. So I think it's really important that love, that respect, and that camaraderie for your team, for the people that are working, that are generating the money for your business, is respected. And I see that there's not always, but I think in a lot of places that is not respected.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Brian, we're in a kind of, I would say, unique or strange times in the restaurant industry, right? With the cost for not just for labor, real estate, like all of these things that are happening. How do you see the restaurant industry evolving in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years?
It's difficult to say because I do think everything's cyclical. I think that everything we could predict that it may come back to, there's a lot of big restaurants right now, a lot of big industry, a lot of big money being thrown around everywhere. And we may go back to seeing smaller mom and pops after that trend goes down. I don't know how long the cycle is. So it's hard to say, is the cycle 10 years? Is it 3 years? Is it 5 to 6 years? I think what's going to happen, if I had to really predict what's going to happen, it's saturated, right? There are so many restaurants, right? So many. And because of costs, they are not cheap. People are struggling right now to spend a lot of money on restaurants. And when they have so many, you don't have such a massive client pool to the people that are going out to restaurants are diluted amongst all the restaurants. I think inevitably there's going to be a lot of closing, and that will shine light on what's going to happen. I think there'll probably be a lot of restaurants that do close within the near future. I don't know how long that's going to take. People may hold out, and it may be 2 years, and maybe 4 years, and maybe 5 years. But I think what's going to happen is after that, essentially closing of all the restaurants. I mean, either that or we have a massive influx of more population into Miami, which is going to be crazy because it feels like it extends.
It's already populated
everywhere. It steals that. But it has to stabilize at some point. Something has to stabilize because it's just so crazy right now. So I think there's probably going to be some closures, and there's going to be some kind of leaning back towards let's go to simple stuff. From over having spent $150 for a steak, I'm around to spend this. I want to feel like I can go out to a normal place and it's just going to be really food and chill and have a good time. I think we'll start seeing some of those trends. I don't know about timeline because, this is pretty unique what's going on right now. So I don't know how long that cycle is, but I think we'll go back. And we'll probably be back in a situation like this again at the other end of the cycle.
Yeah, for sure. So if you were going to open a restaurant from scratch today, what we were just talking about, first, what would it be and what would you do differently?
Good question. I would shoot for what we're saying. I would totally shoot for something that's neighborhood, something that people can relate to. I think that Beaker and Gray was a good story that we told. I think that I'm very proud of it. And I think it ended in a great place. And I think like all good movies had a good start and a good end. I think I would want to go for something that maybe the story isn't so exciting, but that is heartwarming. Something that is that people can relate to all over, all kinds of people that can go to it. Like I said, feel the same feelings of I can approach this completely unguarded, but with more familiar things, with a sense of home. I think it's important that people start to feel like a restaurant maybe is a little bit more homey, not necessarily in the aesthetic or the ambiance, but in the experience, just the general feeling of I like this and I want to be back in this. And I think that could be translated in simplicity, but again, integrity, quality. So I think in terms of concept, it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters what's toilet cuisine. I don't think it matters. I think it's more about how do we generate that feel? And I think that's what I would go for. Less of a trend, more of a home for people.
That's good, Brian. I mean, I think you might open up a place again.
I'm telling you, it's my left eye. I haven't really been speaking about it, and it may happen.
You're thinking about it, man. No, I feel you, man. Because when you're talking about it, you get excited, and I can see it.
Which one our heart business, for sure.
That's so cool, man. So lastly, to finalize, Brian, so two things here. What's one of the most, I guess, impacting or memorable piece of advice you received in your career as a restaurateur and chef? And what advice would you give to other restaurateurs and chefs that are starting out?
My father, he always, whenever we spoke about how much the restaurant can make or whatever, let's say it's going to generate this, he always had a thing. He'd say, yeah, but minus taxes, right? Minus taxes. Well, 100% minus taxes. Oh, everything minus taxes. Don't forget about taxes. The advice that I got from that is be realistic about what it takes and what to expect. We can all get very eager on what we imagine the outcome to be. And that excitement, that eagerness will easily turn into being impulsive. And that's dangerous, right? This industry will swallow up all your money. It will swallow up all your time, your sweat, your energy. So it's good to be excited, but just be aware of everything that can happen and be prepared for those things. Don't make decisions out of justice, and be really aware of everything that's involved. And there are so many things. So every decision you make, like I said at the beginning, is make it intentional, make it cautiously, be excited about it, because excitement and passion are everything. Don't take the excitement out. Don't be pessimistic. There's a fine line between being pessimistic and cautious. Just take the necessary steps. Don't be impatient. Just make the right decisions. Take the risk. A risk is good. It's important. It's necessary. But don't be impulsive. That's probably the best advice. Be aware of everything that's going on. And in this industry, especially, you really need to not rush into any decision.
Yeah. Man, that's great advice. It really is. And I think that applies for every business, Brian. I mean, you just said it, man. You go really excited, especially in restaurants, because we get so excited about the concepts and food, and it's just a passionate business in general. So you can make rash decisions, like you envision this and you're like, yeah, let's go. Let's invest in it. Let's get the terrace. been there, done that, man. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
When I
And
was
at the end
younger.
of the day, you're just like, and I just,
But yeah, it's human nature.
For sure, but it always takes more time, more money, just patience. I think that's the key, man. Patience, consistency, and just kind of maintain this level of excitement, but not too excited because like you can go overboard with rash decision. That's really great advice, Ryan. That's fantastic. I think you're already helping a lot of restaurant owners. I think you're going to be able to help a lot of more restaurant owners with Avenue Gray, and for sure serve a lot of people if you open a new restaurant. So, Ryan, if somebody wants to contact you and is looking for help with their restaurants, tell us how they can get in touch with you through Avenue Gray. Are you working locally only in Miami or like anywhere in the US you're available
yeah,
to
I'll
work
go
in?
anywhere in their case. I'll travel. They can either email me, brian@avenuegray.com. They can go to my website. They can go on my Instagram. It's all at Avenue Gray. Yeah, I'm findable for sure.
Okay. Fantastic, Brian. Well, thank you so much again for being here. It was a really cool and insightful conversation. And then I hope to see you soon.
Great to talk to you.
All right, my friend. Thanks so much.
Bye, Nasajon.